We are so excited to talk with the business leaders that have invested in applied research in both the Wheretech and Arizona Blockchain Centers. And we are so fortunate today to be joined by the chairman of the Arizona House Commerce Committee, Representative Jeff Weninger. He is going to be our moderator for this panel. And again, if you have questions, please enter them in the Q&A. If you don't hear your question being answered, please know that we'll contact you with the answer. And Representative Weninger, it is all yours.
Thank you, Mia. Thank you very much. Today, it's great to be here. Today we have Dr. Joe Hitt from GoX Labs, Scott Carlson from Kudelski Security, and Dr. Marc Jacofsky from the Core Institute and Moore Foundation. So let's start with Joe. I do remember you came down to the legislature. It's been very exciting a couple of years ago and talked to all of us about applied research. It was a fascinating discussion. I think people have really gotten interested in this. Can you give us a little background on yourself and GoX Labs, if I'm pronouncing that right?
Of course. Well, I had the honor and privilege of serving in the U.S. Army, where I got to jump out of airplanes in pitch black darkness for a living. Then I was a professor of engineering at West Point, working with cadets, and then a PM at DARPA, where I built humanoid robots and exoskeletons. Once I got out of the military, I started several companies. One was number 27 on Inc. 5000 in 2019, where we grew that business in 3 years from 2 of us to 200 employees. I started GoX Labs, a software company based today at the Wheretech Center in Phoenix. What we do is we predict and prevent future workforce injury. So I've taken a lot of the things that I've done in the military, a lot of the data we've collected, a lot of the science, and we've converted that into a commercial company now. Today, we predict, prevent future workforce injury, illness. We have a COVID detector, and diseases like diabetes using third-party wearables. So we take things like smartwatches and we put an app on there, and that app does that prediction. Today, GoX Labs is in the US, Canada, Europe, Australia, and so on.
Wow. Well, that's amazing. You made me feel pretty inadequate with your resume there, but that's okay. Congrats. That's amazing. So you told us a little bit about the Wheretech project somewhat. So maybe expand on that a little bit. And then once you've validated your testing and protocols, what's next?
Yeah, so GoX Labs is involved in many projects, and one of them is the Wheretech Project. So in partnership with Arizona State University, Wheretech, the Wearable Robotics Trade Association, and the Fraunhofer Institute, which is Europe's second largest research organization, we have developed test standards for exoskeletons, right? So every new product at the end of the day needs a test standard that helps to make sure the product is effective and safe for consumers. So we've done that. We have developed the tools. We've tested it with test subjects, and we've tested it with top commercially available exoskeletons. And we did that right inside the Wheretech Center. Today it's validated, and we're ready for the next steps. We want this to be a critical part of the exoskeleton explosion that's happening all across the globe.
So with that, do you think it's a goal and realistic with some of these things that you're doing there, and hopefully we're expanding upon this at the legislature, to attract those exoskeleton developers to the Valley and to the state?
Yeah, and really what you're asking is, can you get companies like GoX Labs to come here?
Right.
And the answer is yes. We have great applied research. You just heard some. So Dean Squire talked about it. You had Zach, Peter. I mean, these are some really impressive young people. And you just heard about their research. We have the Wearable Robotics Trade Association located here in Arizona. So that's great. We do have some fantastic companies, but also we haven't talked about it yet. I haven't heard it yet, but fantastic weather. I work outside. You know, you can't beat this weather. You can't beat our restaurants and the hiking, the energy here, the lower cost of living compared to the coasts, emphasis on innovation, and slowly I'm starting to see access to capital. So I do believe we are at a tipping point to create a regional hub for exoskeletons here in Arizona, and to attract companies like Goex to come and be part of the culture, leverage the great resources we have here, and be part of this new economy.
Well, I think it's so important, the work that you're doing and your company's doing, and bringing that entire vertical and making it a reality here. And really, that's one thing we've tried at the legislature to do is not just be dependent on real estate like we were years ago. And every vertical that we can create that is realistic, I think is good. And so that kind of brings us to a passion of mine over the last few years, which is blockchain. I've been intrigued by it, even the cryptocurrency side and the blockchain side, and ran multiple bills on it, and hopefully helped advance it somewhat here. We have Scott Carlson, who works with Kudelski Security. Scott also came down to the legislature a couple of years ago, and we've discussed a lot of these things. So tell us a little bit about your company. And people might not know that you're headquartered right here in Phoenix, right?
Yeah, that's correct. So Kudelski Security is part of a larger entity called the Kudelski Group. We're a 60-year-old Swiss company located just outside of Geneva. And in 2016, we were looking for a US headquarters to launch our cybersecurity division. And we ended up picking Phoenix right here, primarily due to its location, access to resources, the amount of business friendliness and input that Arizona has put on innovators like the Kudelski Group. We're primarily known for digital television, but when we look to focus on cybersecurity, there's not much better place to be than in Arizona with access to the rest of the US.
Absolutely. Absolutely. So why did you invest, I guess, in the Arizona Blockchain Applied Research Center specifically?
Yeah, that's a good question. So our corporate executives have a long history of working with partnerships like this, an organization called EPFL in Switzerland. We're a big partner of theirs. Through Georgia Tech, our current CEO for Kudelski Security built an equivalent thing out there. And when we got this opportunity, we felt, hey, this is an opportunity for us to make a real difference using our experience doing it before and promoting something we're really good at, which is sort of the underlying foundation of what makes blockchain technology work.
Absolutely. So how do you think this research will help the company Kudelski?
Yeah, that's a really good question. So if you take a look at our history of what makes the Kudelski Group sort of famous and good, we protect physical access, digital content, and help with cybersecurity. The foundation of all that is math and science and doing those kind of encryption and cryptography algorithms. When you look at what blockchain technology is, it's a new application of this kind of science to, different types of business models, different types of tech that could actually revolutionize the world in the way we do business. Because we have such a long history of mathematics and expertise in this area, we believe we can become a leader in helping solve these problems, testing people who are solving these problems, participating in the ecosystem, when there's these sort of global distributed challenges that a blockchain can potentially solve.
Yeah, and I'm very passionate about it, and it's tough to explain it to people when they say, what is it, and this and that. Yeah. I do truly think it could revolutionize things in ways like the internet did, but I think it's just not as sometimes sexy to people as the internet. You just get on and do it. It's happening in the background, but the efficiencies and the validation that it provides, I just think is so important and can just save people so much money and time. What's your take on the future of blockchain in general and where we're going?
So for those of you who do not know what blockchain technology is, to make it really simple, it's a database that you can't change without detecting that it has been changed. So it's a really great way to prove that what is in there hasn't changed or could be the truth. So now if you think, what if I have a big long list of records that nobody can change, that I know is the truth to begin with? What kind of business models can I build on top of that kind of information? I can do identity-based things really fast. Maybe I can buy a house in 5 minutes. I can prove signatures because I can look them up in seconds. I can do business transactions one hop at a time instead of waiting for net 30, net 60, net 90. So assuming this technology is on solid math foundations, which we've proven it is, these algorithms are 20, 30, 40 years old. We now need these sort of business process and technologies too on top of it that utilize this good tech. And so assuming we have the right investment in people changing the business models on top of blockchain technology, like it could be the way just things are run. We know who you are, we know where your money is, we know all of it like that fast. And we know it's true. We know truth is challenging sometimes in the world today. Why not have something that helps us prove that? I think it's pretty exciting.
You're right. And I just got a text from someone saying, you're doing a really good job explaining blockchain.
Thank you.
Either have someone or try to point them to someone who can explain it. And that was really good. Do we need additional resources for blockchain applied research?
The answer is absolutely, right? So you, I think, started this in 2016 or 2017. Some of the laws in place here in Arizona allow us to play with this safely and legally, right? We can use it as money for a little bit. We know a digital signature is okay. We know businesses can operate and experiment without the threat of it being thrown away because it might potentially be illegal. Like we put those guardrails in place in Arizona. That's awesome. So now we need the investment in the tools and techniques and businesses and potential use cases where we can say, hey, look, we made it legal and we made it useful. Why don't you come do it here in Arizona?
Right. No, absolutely. And I definitely think it's going to be a vertical in the future. And I thought the United States as a whole needs to get on board. I mean, somewhat with digital currencies and these kinds of things. But I always use the example that if in Silicon Valley back in the 90s, somebody was like, okay, hang on, us regulators need to get our hands around this internet, we would be at such a huge disadvantage to other countries and growth. And I feel that same way about blockchain, a lot of these different things and small cell capabilities. And we have to get, in a safe way, some of these regulations out of the way instead of stifling growth.
Absolutely.
Awesome.
Yeah.
Well, thank you.
Right guardrails. It's great.
Absolutely. So in the video, we saw the fall prediction monitor. Today we have Marc Jacofsky, who leads the private sector research team for the CORE Institute. Marc, tell us a little bit about CORE and why you decided to invest in a Wheretech project.
Well, thank you for having me. We heard a lot about startups today, and in a way, the CORE Institute is an Arizona startup success story in and of its own. We were founded in 2006 by 3 orthopedic surgeons that had a vision to really change the way healthcare was delivered in the orthopedic space. And now we are the largest provider of musculoskeletal care in the state of Arizona, and we employ over 1,500 people throughout the state. So it's really been an exciting startup ride. We're not only innovators when it comes to technology and patient care, but also as it relates to bending the cost curve to keep healthcare affordable. So it's one thing to study or to optimize, how you treat a fall-related injury, such as a hip fracture. But and we want to obtain the best patient outcomes with the greatest cost efficiency. But it's really a paradigm shift for an orthopedic surgeon and an orthopedic group to work to prevent those fall injuries altogether. And we truly believe that the technology that Dr. Lockhart has developed has the ability to prevent falls and related injuries. The challenge is the validation and the implementation in a busy healthcare system that traditionally does not financially reward injury prevention. It unfortunately rewards injury treatment over injury prevention. So it's that opportunity to really change that paradigm that motivated the Core Institute's leadership to invest in this technology and help bring it to market.
Excellent. So how did the Wheretech Center help bring the idea to life that you worked on?
So the technology was initially developed by Dr. Lockhart with decades of research that was funded through National Science Foundation, National Institutes of Health, those types of organizations. And it had been tested and validated with small groups of volunteers in the lab environment, but there wasn't a source of funds that was really available to translate the innovation from the lab to the clinic. And without Wheretech, this technology may have fallen into that proverbial valley of death and never made it into the clinic where it can truly improve people's lives and well-being. So the Wheretech funds helped us to bridge that gap and fund the critical validation studies in real patient populations and the initial clinical implementation with real-world clinical care teams.
Right. So then again, once the product is validated, what happens next after that?
Yeah, so we plan to work with our clinicians at the Core Institute as well as many other medical practices, and we want to implement this technology here in Arizona and across the nation with our partners. We believe this technology, once it's broadly implemented, will really have a measurable impact through reducing the incidence of falls, particularly in elderly populations. And this will improve quality of life and reduce healthcare costs to organizations like Medicare, state Medicaid, and private insurance companies. So it really provides a return on investment to the taxpayers and the private sector that help to fund these things. There are very few innovations in healthcare that can truly bend the cost of the healthcare curve. And we're confident that preventing falls rather than treating resulting fall injuries is really one of the few innovations that can bend that cost curve.
Do you think that Core would work on future Wheretech projects if there were additional funds put into the program?
Oh, absolutely. Absolutely. I think these funds, as I said, really can help promising new technologies overcome that valley of death where they just sit on the shelf and don't move from innovation to implementation. And we would welcome additional opportunities to help move those innovations from the lab to the actual clinical care setting.
Excellent. And I think what you're talking about specifically kind of goes to everyone who is on the call. And what I try to preach down here is that you're talking about real world savings for government and stuff, because it won't be such a tax on the healthcare system and everything here. And I always love the more, the feeling ones. But then in addition to that, as you and these other companies expand, you're bringing on more jobs, which means more people are being paid, which means they're going out shopping, they're paying income tax, and it helps us. That's why we've done so well for the last few years, is because you have expanded the economy, because somewhat we tried to get the regulatory environment out of your way and help to build companies up and keep them here. And we're proud that you're here.
Thank you. Yeah, we're trying to keep people healthy and keep their life in motion. That's really our mantra here.
I mean, I do, and the others can answer this because we might have an extra minute or two. And if we don't, Mia or somebody can interrupt me. But one thing I do caution people about, and I did this tons with blockchain, and I think it would apply to you as well, is that there's always incumbent players who like the chessboard to remain as it is, because they might have a competitive advantage or their business model works for this kind of thing. I mean, Ubers and taxi cabs is a real elementary kind of example of that. You're saying that, Marc, that people might be resistant to somebody preventing injuries for orthopedic surgeons and not having it in the first place. In blockchain, if there's a title company that facilitates titles and you go in and sign all your papers and everything, they might not be happy that blockchain is here and can do it in a lot faster time without you being physically present. So do you run into those kinds of things and those kinds of a little bit of pushback that you're going against incumbent players that have been there for years with their business model?
Yeah, well, certainly no orthopedic surgeons or healthcare providers want to see a patient injured and become their patient, right? But the financial models that have historically been in place for 50 plus years in this country, and the way insurance works, is you are only financially rewarded if you are treating someone that has been injured. And so I think we need a paradigm change, and some of that goes hand in hand with legislative change and push to really incentivize programs to prevent people from getting injured, to keep people healthy longer, which actually reduces cost in the long run. And so there are certainly some entrenched ideas and providers, and the system is structured such that we really need to change the way healthcare providers are incentivized to keep people healthy rather than treating their injuries and diseases.
Excellent. Well, I thank all three of you for, one, having your businesses here, and two, for joining this discussion, this great discussion about applied research. The work happening right here in Arizona is incredible, and with the limited resources that the legislature has invested so far, I think is paying off great dividends, and I look forward to hopefully keep this going and keep Arizona investing in these great companies.
Thank you for the opportunity today.
Thank you.
Thank you.